at the Farrell Center. Jon Machota, theathletic.com, covers the Cowboys. John, has it been kind of a nice, quiet week? Is there any drama? What's going on with the Cowboys? Because there's always something.
I don't know if there's any drama. Stephen Jones talked yesterday at the Senior Bowl, and he had some interesting thoughts and some things. His comments made it sound it's certainly not a slam dunk that Amari Cooper is going to be back. Let's just put it this way. After I heard Stephen's comments at the Combine, I think I went from thinking about 60 to 70% Amari would be back to now I'm down at maybe 50-50 at best. Certainly didn't give a ringing endorsement. He wasn't blaming just Amari for his play and that. He talked about how that, they need to scheme things up for him and he needs more targets and stuff like that. But when, it came time to talk about how the $20 million that he'll be making next year, and Stephen just started getting into basically, when you pay a guy, big money like that, you want that production and stuff. So that's going to be the big stuff coming up. We already know that they can't sign many players outside the building, and certainly not any that are of major consequence. And you'll see on websites and things like that over the next couple of months, free agent players, and the Cowboys logo next to their name or their picture, like, the Cowboys in on this guy, and just like every other year in the last decade, they're not. But it really, the most interesting thing is going to be the DeMarcus Lawrence and Amari Cooper situation. And man, it just doesn't seem like both those guys are going to be back. And that's just kind of the way it goes with the salary cap. But I think one of them will be back. I think it'll be DeMarcus Lawrence, but I'm leaning towards Amari might be out now.
Well, if Amari Cooper's gone, Cedric Wilson's headed to free agency. Michael Gallup is headed to free agency. Malik Turner is headed to free agency. So really it's CeeDee Lamb and Noah Brown headed to free agency. So it's CeeDee Lamb and Simi Fehoko at that position right now for them. So if Amari Cooper's going, that's a pretty big swipe at that position.
Yeah, it would be. And I will say if you get rid of Amari, I think it saves you about $16 million on the cap. I think you spend a little bit of money on another receiver, and obviously you can address it in the draft too. I don't think that. Me personally, I believe it's one of the easiest positions to add bodies to in just because of draft. How many good receivers come out in the draft every year? It's such a young man's game, and then because of that, there's a lot of them. It's like the complete opposite of quarterback. Like there aren't a lot of great quarterbacks, so there's this constant turnover time with wide receivers. You can find a good wide receiver in the 4th, 5th round and come in and play for you and play a meaningful role. His rookie season. And then that also, with that in the case, there'll be other veteran, free agent wide receivers on the market that, hey, they might be willing to take a cheap 1-year prove-it deal to the number 2 for the Cowboys or the number 3 for the Cowboys. So I think when it comes down to it, and it's not going to be an either or, Amari or DeMarcus Lawrence, but if it was, you look at their positions and finding, a good edge rusher, it's just way more difficult than finding a good wide receiver. Now, that doesn't mean you're going to find a receiver as good as Amari Cooper. But then again, look at how good the receivers were this year. And last I checked, they're not playing right now. So,
how much will JuJu SmithSchuster's comments, I guess, maybe hype up the train for him and Dallas as a possibility?
I mean, yeah, if he's willing to take the veteran, really cheap 1-year prove-it deal, it's a possibility. But I don't see him being that type of player that he would do that. So that's why I don't know. I think it's because he's here for, a 7-Eleven commercial shoot with Dak. And so obviously why not ask him about something like that? But I mean, somebody like of that, I think it would be unlikely.
Yeah.
I think it would be, that's the thing. People will point to, remember before Amari, they didn't, have a true number 1 receiver, and they went into the year with Deontay Thompsons and Allen Hurns and guys like that. Well, they got CeeDee Lamb now. So that's one piece. You just need to add, another one there if you're to lose Amari and Michael Gallup and Cedric Wilson and those guys. So, but I don't think they're going to lose all of them, and I really don't. I think that there's a chance that they could possibly get Cedric to come back, and if not, then you could also potentially have some money for Michael Gallup. So I don't know. There's a lot of pieces to be played here. It's very obvious that this roster is not going to look the same way this year as we knew going into the playoffs.
Sometimes we ask you about the Cowboys and stuff in the NFL because that's what we have you for. But yeah, as a beat writer for the Cowboys, and we've asked others who have covered them over the years, can you try to explain that you have to be watching or listening or at pretty much anything that anybody within the organization, it seems, that does?
Well, that's a good question because it's all about how good of a job you want to do. And so for someone like me that, I'm always on Twitter. I'm always, I'm reading everything that's out there that everybody's saying. I mean, it's beyond, like, this is not like a 40-hour 9-to-5 job work. It's not even close to that. And believe me, I'm not alone on that. I mean, this beat has a lot of people that, are on that same wavelength, that you really don't get very much time, downtime. There's not a lot of, time for yourself or your family and things like that. Again, that's depending on the job that you want to do with it. But the Cowboys certainly put out enough stuff, and they're always involved with a wider range of topics because of Jerry, because of their brand and all of that you can almost bring the Cowboys in every conversation, and so because of that, you really don't ever feel like there's some off time. And it is, though, when you do get people like, friends and people you just come across like on the road and stuff like that, they'll ask you, oh, so you cover the Cowboys, so what do you do in the off season? It's like, no, I cover the Cowboys all year round. Like, that's just how it goes with this team.
John, the Bengals are in the Super Bowl, and Mike Brown is not nearly as engaged as an owner as Jerry is in many respects, and he's made it in. Jerry's been super engaged. He's done it with signing big free agents. He's done it with, trying to build through the draft. He's done it kind of halfway. What is it going to take? What kind of methodology is he going to have to find to get this team back in the Super Bowl?
That's a great question coming off of the way they lost in the playoffs, because everything I would design for you talent-wise and roster-building-wise in today's salary cap era, they had this year. I mean, yeah, did they have the perfect running back situation? No, but they had a running back situation that was good enough on paper that they could easily be still playing right now. The offensive line, you could argue, was the biggest disappointment on the team, probably was. But they have the talent on the roster that offense could still be playing right now. Quarterback, wide receiver, the way the defense played, especially compared to the year before. There are a lot of the makings are there on this team right now. I find it hard to believe that anybody that wants to just go ahead and that's a really hardcore, like, talent evaluator and follows it. I have a hard time believing that you put the Cowboys roster next to Cincinnati's and you're just like, yeah, this isn't even close. Like, okay, if you say so. Like, is Joe Burrow playing better than Dak Prescott? Yeah, there's no question about that. You can say that, Jamar Chase is a better number one receiver. You can even say their receiving core is better than that. Their offensive line, even as bad as the Cowboys' offensive line played, Bengals' offensive line isn't any better. They got Joe Burrow sacked 9 times against Tennessee. I mean, it's amazing they even won the game after that happened. And so that's my whole thing. I don't think the Cowboys on paper are that far away, but they have to be more disciplined. You got to cut out those penalties. The team just has to be better coached. And so I don't think the team's going to be as talented next year as it was this year just because of the salary cap and things like that. But in terms of building a roster that has a chance to run, they did it during the 2021 season.
John, we talked to you last week. I think it was the day after that Dan Quinn became clear that he was going to stay with Dallas. How surprised, if at all, were you by that? And sort of where are we now with Kellen Moore and whether or not Dallas could improbably, based on kind of the thought a couple weeks ago, could return both coordinators?
Yeah, I thought at the end of the season that Dan Quinn was locked to get one of the head coaching jobs either in Chicago, Denver was number one, but Denver, Chicago, or the Giants. And so for him not to get any of those, obviously it makes sense to come back to a defense that he had a lot of success with, and that it's a young defense that he can build on. And I'm sure he looks at it as a great opportunity to have more success and be even better than they were last year. And as long as he does that, he'll be right back in this cycle of head coaching interviews again next year. So it's not a bad move for him. Get a little pay raise. Get a little, I'm sure it's not as good as the pay raise he would have got as a head coach, but it certainly doesn't close the door for him on any head coaching opportunities. Those are still there. With the way the Cowboys offense played during the back half of the season, I don't think anybody would be that surprised if, Kellen Moore didn't get a job. But the way Kellen Moore was at the beginning of the season, the first 7 games, you would have thought for sure he's going to get one of these openings. But the way it went during the back half of the season and the playoffs, it made you less likely to think he'd get one. But it's, he's still in on this Miami job. He's had multiple interviews there that, they haven't filled that position yet. So it certainly seems like his name is just being seriously considered there. What would be interesting is if he does get that job, what the Cowboys would do on offense. And, hearing those comments from Stephen Jones yesterday, it certainly seems like Mike McCarthy calling plays could be a real possibility if that's the case. And so that could be an interesting offseason story right there.
What were your thoughts about Jerry jumping on a local radio station in Dallas, which is the flagship, and they get a lot of interviews and weekly segments with Stephen and Jerry. That's McCarthy. But there seemed to be kind of a disappointment among some in the I guess, beat writer community or NFL community that there should have been a press conference that included McCarthy and the rest of the media. I know some of the guys on that station, and I've listened to them, and they don't always throw softballs, and there's going to be some, I guess. But what was your thought, John, overall, or did you just kind of stay away from that?
I can see where some of the people you're talking about are coming from because, like I said earlier, the time we put in, and we're only covering the Cowboys, you'd like to have that opportunity. But I'm not naive to, I understand that they're the flagship station. Like, if he wants to go on there, he can go on whenever he wants. I mean, they have a partnership, I totally get that. I have no problem with the guys that interview him. I think they do a good job. They interviewed him for like 20 minutes, and no, that stuff doesn't bother me. I'll tell you guys, the thing that bothers me, if we're going to talk media stuff, is after the season's over, you hear other teams getting 10, 15, 20 players made available via Zooms, obviously, because we're not allowed in the locker room. And the Cowboys didn't make one player available after the season ended. We got Mike McCarthy, and that was it. And I just thought that was kind of weak. Not to have one person. I mean, I understand everyone's disappointed. You didn't want the season to end like that. I get that. But especially, to be honest with you, I thought the Zooms even make it even easier to try and make a few players available. So that one was that's the only thing that I would say I'd have a problem with. But I also say this, me saying this right now, on a radio program is about as far as it would go. Like, I don't get on Twitter and start complaining about that stuff because it is what it is. And you just try and make the best out of what you have. And frankly, with the Cowboys, there's enough information out there that I'm going to be able to write stories regardless. You guys can do it whatever way you want. I'll cover the team and I'll find a way.
John, one of the things about the way that and I think it really kind of got ratcheted up with Romo. Like, Romo was very protected, and then it's kind of spiderwebbed out from there. And it's not that they should throw these guys to the wolves, but I do think that Jerry in the organization protects them a little bit too much, and maybe has softened up this team mentally.
Yeah, it is interesting because there's been times. At the end of the year this year, there were some times, I believe, at the end of last year where Mike McCarthy talked about the media obligations and the spotlight the players are under and things like that with the Cowboys. And yeah, certainly the Cowboys, there's more attention on them than other teams. But I also say that, with the way that it's structured now, these guys are not under, they're under scrutiny in terms of social media now is way different. And so you hear from fans a lot more, and they're tweeting at, family members and totally going over the line and now that stuff. But I'm talking media wise, professionally, we're not in the locker rooms anymore. The only players we get are the players that are made available to us after the game. It's very, very controlled, and it has been throughout this COVID time. So that's where I'm kind of I don't, you guys, you can say that you got it bad right now. That's fine, but let's not act like this is worse than it's been. This is easier on players. It's not the same as, like I said, though, when there's locker room availability, you have 10, 15 reporters, 20 reporters standing in a locker room for 45 minutes. And they're going to talk to some people, that's what you do when you're in there. That to me seems like that would be more difficult to deal with. And even that's changed. I'm friends with a lot of guys who've been covering this team since the early 90s, and you get Troy Aikman every day or Emmett every day, Michael Irvin, whatever. Now, these guys have a one day that they talk, and they talk for 5 or 10 minutes. That's it. So I don't know about the whole, just the media scrutiny on the team. Yeah, on the outside, I get it. There wasn't First Take and all these other shows and stuff, and I understand that. And then, like I said, the social media side with fans, but in terms of the media access and stuff like that, there's no way that there's more of that, and we're more difficult than the way it's been in the past, especially with the Cowboys.
You should walk out to the car and talk to Troy Aikman. Yeah, come out. Walk to the car with me. I mean, if you tried to walk out to the car at Dak Prescott right now, I'd be like, John, what are you doing?
Yeah. Well,
I don't think I could get to where his car is parked.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's the way it was. And honestly, I mean, this sounds like, of course, things change. But when at Valley Ranch, the players did park around the side. And at times you would be able to get them as they came through the gate. It was not, just all this place is cordoned off or whatever. And the Cowboys have always been pretty accessible. But, yeah, I think there's a little protectionism that's gone on after it seems like a few things. And that's unfortunate that you wouldn't have a chance to talk to some players as the season ended to get their feel. John, thank you very much. Jon Machota, theathletic.com, covers the Cowboys and does a great job with it on Sikkim 365 Radio on Wednesdays in the 5 o'clock hour.